Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder why we pick the goals we do, especially when there are so many possibilities out there? Well, this new study dives deep into that very question. Imagine you are at a giant buffet with an endless number of dishes. You want to eat something delicious and maybe even try something completely new. But there is just so much. You can't possibly try everything. How do you even start picking? That is kind of like what our brains do when we choose our goals. The researchers here say that even though we can make a goal out of almost anything, we don't just pick randomly. Our past experiences play a huge role. This is the first big hurdle. Our minds have limited time and energy, or as scientists call it, limited cognitive resources. So we can't really think about every single possible goal we could ever have. It is like trying to consider every single dish at that giant buffet. It's just too much to deal with this. We often stick with what we know. Think about it. How often do you order the same thing at a restaurant because you already know you like it? The study explains that we often reuse things we've done before. We stick with goals that have worked for us. Even when we choose something new, it's often a combination or a slight twist on something familiar. This is called rational resolve or rational non-reconsideration. We basically decide not to think too hard about new options because thinking takes effort. And we've already got a good enough plan with what we know. This is a key idea. Instead of coming up with completely wild, brand new ideas out of nowhere, we tend to mix and match existing concepts. Think about a chef creating a new dish. They're not inventing entirely new ingredients. They're combining familiar ingredients in new ways. This makes it easier to form a list of goals we're willing to consider. We're essentially standing on the shoulders of our past choices, making it easier to innovate. Okay, so we've narrowed down our options, our consideration set. Now, for each of those potential goals, we have to ask ourselves, can I actually do this? This is the problem of feasibility. For example, if you decide you want to learn a new language, you have to figure out if you have the time, the resources, the brain power to actually become fluent. That is a big question, especially if you've never learned a new language before. The researchers point out that figuring this out isn't easy because we don't have perfect knowledge of the world, and we can't perfectly plan for every single possible future. This is where our past experiences shine again. If you have a goal like learning a new programming language, and you already know other programming languages, you can break down the new goal into steps that use actions you already know how to do. You can say, okay, I know how to set up a development environment. I know how to write basic code. I know how to debug. This makes the new goal seem much more achievable or feasible. If a goal is really new, we might break it down into smaller, more manageable goals. Think about training for a marathon. Your big goal is to finish the marathon, but you break that down into smaller goals like running a 5K, then a 10K, then a half marathon. Each of those smaller goals is easier to assess for feasibility. Now we've got a list of goals we're considering and we think we can actually achieve them. But which one is the best one to pursue? This is where the problem of evaluation comes in. This is about figuring out how much value or reward we expect to get from a goal. It's not just about the immediate prize, but also about what that goal will help us achieve in the future. For example, getting a PhD isn't just about getting the degree itself. It's about the knowledge you gain, the skills you develop, and the doors it opens for future research or careers. This is a mouthful, but it means it is incredibly hard, almost impossible, to perfectly calculate the future value of new knowledge or skills that you don't even have yet. How do you know for sure how valuable learning a new skill will be years down the line? It's a massive uncertainty. So how do we make these difficult judgments? We use our past again. We look at goals we've achieved before and think, that goal was really valuable and this new potential goal seems similar in some ways. So it is probably going to be valuable too. It is like seeing a new menu item that uses ingredients you love, so you assume you like it. So, what is the big picture here? The researchers argue that our goal selection isn't random because we're not infinitely capable. We have limits on our time and our mental energy. These limitations force us to rely on our past experiences to help us. 1. Decide which goals to even think about, the consideration problem. 2. Figure out if we can actually achieve those goals, the feasibility problem. 3. Estimate how valuable those goals will be in the long run, the evaluation problem. They suggest we should think of picking goals as a specific kind of decision making. It's a balancing act. New goals can be more rewarding, but they're also much harder to figure out. Sticking with familiar goals is easier even if they might not be as exciting or valuable as a brand new possibility. Now, it is super important to remember that this isn't the whole story. The researchers themselves admit this. They point out that sometimes, especially with kids playing, it is not all about calculating future rewards. Sometimes it is just about having fun or intrinsic motivation, which are powerful drivers. Plus, they didn't even touch on how our friends, family, and culture influence our goals, which is a huge part of being human. Their main point is that instead of just focusing on how we maximize rewards or what our deep-seated evolutionary drives are, we should also consider these practical, everyday limitations that shape the goals we choose. It's about understanding the very human challenges we face when we try to set and achieve our ambitions. This leads to some really interesting questions. For example, why do we sometimes put off important long-term goals for easier, short-term ones? Maybe our brain's limitations make that seem like the more sensible or less taxing. Choice in the moment, this research really highlights that goal setting isn't just about willpower or desire. It is a complex cognitive process shaped by our very human constraints. It's a reminder that sometimes the most practical way to move forward is to build on what we already know, making the daunting task of choosing our future a little more manageable. What do you all think? Does this resonate with how you pick your own goals? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this dive into the science of decision making, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more fascinating research breakdowns, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the human mind. See you next time.